President Andrzej Duda met Mariusz Kamiński and Maciej Wąsik this afternoon. The former heads of the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau left the Radom and Święty Stary penitentiaries last night after President Duda pardoned them for a second time. It is worth remembering that the presidential palace is the same place where the police detained the two MPs earlier this month on the 9th of January. This caused a huge controversy because the two politicians were there as guests of the president, and their detention took place without his knowledge at a time when Andrzej Duda was holding another meeting in the Belvedere Palace several kilometres away. The president pardoned the two MPs while emphasising that the 2015 Act of Clemency is still in legal force. The two gentlemen are pardoned. I confirm this with full force. The prisoners then received orders to release the jailed politicians. Moments after 9 p.m, Mariusz Kamiński was released from the Radom prison. Waiting for the former Interior and Administration Minister were his family and a crowd of demonstrators, who had stood in solidarity with the politicians from the very beginning. Mr. Tusk, Mr. Hołownia, we will see each other soon. Moments later, Maciej Wąsik was released in Święty Stary. The politician warmly thanked everyone for their support, solidarity and prayers. In the early afternoon today, the freed politicians met President Andrzej Duda to finish the conversation that was interrupted on the 9th of January. Mariusz Kamiński and Maciej Wąsik were detained on the evening of the 9th of January while they were at the presidential palace at the invitation of Andrzej Duda. The president initiated the pardon proceedings on the 11th of January. The Minister of Justice, Prosecutor General Adam Bodnar, delayed handing over his opinion until the 23rd of January, despite their deteriorating health as a result of the two politicians' hunger strikes. In the end, Adam Bodnar refused to let the deputies go, so the president pardoned them for a second time. The story does not end there, unfortunately. Moments after they were released, Prime Minister Donald Tusk took the airwaves and publicly stated that Mariusz Kamiński and Maciej Wąsik are no longer members of the Sejm. He even warned them directly not to attempt to show their faces at the Sejm. There will be a meeting tomorrow, but the opinions of legal authorities differ diametrically from what the Prime Minister claims.
Sprawa panów Kamińskiego i
Mr. Kamiński and Mr. Wąsik are not MPs. The ruling of the Supreme Court that you mentioned is merely a consequence of the judgments of the ordinary courts. The State Election Commission has demanded that the Speaker of the Sejm provide the legal basis to justify the extinguishing of their mandates. Prime Minister Donald Tusk has not responded to this matter as of yet. In a widespread protest across Poland, thousands of farmers have blocked roads and organised demonstrations in over 200 locations. The strike is part of a larger movement already underway in various European Union countries, including Germany, France, the Netherlands, Romania and Lithuania. We've been always sitting silent, and we see what farmers in other countries like France or Germany are doing. The farmers' demands are diverse, but the key issues include a return to pre-war trade quotas for Ukraine for agricultural products within the European Union, the establishment of independent laboratories for testing agricultural products, the imposition of a ban on importing cereals from Ukraine to Poland, and, of course, a halt to European Union procedures related to climate and ecology, which farmers say do nothing for the climate but only harm agricultural production. Minister of Agriculture, Czesław Siekierski, has acknowledged the challenges faced by Polish farmers, yet he, of course, attributes most of the issues to neglect by the previous government. He highlighted delays in implementing eco-schemes and direct subsidy payments, emphasising that addressing these delays could take months and require improvements in the agricultural data system. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who has just returned from his first visit to Kiev, responded to the protests today, promising a deal with Ukraine but making no mention of the EU Green Deal policies. In Kiev, I heard a clear reassurance that the Ukrainian government is not interested in such uncontrolled exports. They have volunteers. They have interesting deals signed, mainly regarding transit with Romania and Bulgaria. We will be looking for a similar deal between the Ukrainian government and the Polish government. The protesters, organised under the Solidarity Trade Union, expressed frustration with the rising prices of fertilizers, machinery and general agricultural production costs, coupled with falling prices for many agricultural products. They argue that European Union policies, including the Green Deal, are overly restrictive and have led to disruptions in the Polish market as a result of increased imports, particularly from Ukraine. The situation remains dynamic, with continuing protests, and the farmers' demands are diverse, reflecting a complex set of challenges faced by the agricultural sector in Poland. Meanwhile, farmers also blocked several roads across France today to press the government to loosen regulations and help protect them from cheap imports and rising costs. The protests, which farmers said will continue as long as their demands are not met, are the first major challenge for the new Prime Minister Gabriel Attal. Macron is also wary of farmers' growing support for the far right ahead of the European Parliament elections in June. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico on the 23rd of January insisted life in the Ukrainian capital was absolutely normal and that there was no war, a day before his first meeting with the Ukrainian Prime Minister and just hours after Russia fired missiles which fell on Kiev.
A to vy si fakt myslíte, že v Kyjeve je vojna?
Do you seriously think there is a war in Kiev? You are joking, please. I hope you are not being serious. Go there and you will find out there is normal life in the city. Absolutely normal life is there. A reporter asked Fico, therefore, why he is not travelling to Kiev for his meeting with Denis Shimal to better grasp Ukraine's war with Russia. He replied that this has nothing to do with the war in Kiev, but that he felt it was more practical to meet in the border town of Uzhhorod, which he said the Ukrainian side picked after Fico had originally wanted to meet on the two countries' shared border. Fico, who took power in October and reversed course on Slovakia's foreign policy to halt military support for Ukraine, was speaking at a news briefing in eastern Slovakia. He met his Ukrainian counterpart, Denis Shmyhal, today in the western Ukrainian city of Uzhhorod. After the meeting, Shmyhal said both countries were developing a policy of new pragmatism despite all the political challenges. There may soon be some good news for borrowers in the Eurozone. The European Central Bank meets on Thursday as policymakers, not quite ready to declare victory in the inflation battle, struggle to sway trader bets on swift interest rate cuts. Markets are banking on a first cut in April, but the European Central Bank wants to see more evidence of price growth slowing before pushing the button. Inflation is going down, but growth in the Eurozone is effectively non-existent, and this means that tight monetary policy is probably not appropriate, said Donald Cole, chief economist at Julius Baer Bank.
Yeah, when we look at fundamentals, we have to consider inflation is coming down. Growth is non-existent, basically, in the Eurozone. That means probably a tight monetary policy is not appropriate. So when to change that? We think April, the April meeting, is the most likely outcome to change that.
The European Central Bank is certain to keep rates steady, having stopped interest rate hikes in October, then clarified in December it would phase out its pandemic-era bond buying scheme in the second half of 2024. Analysts expect European Central Bank Chief Christine Lagarde to continue signalling that it is too early to discuss rate cuts, a message not fully resonating with traders who are still pricing in a 135 basis point cut starting in April. The European Central Bank releases new inflation and growth forecasts in March, which could set the stage for the start of a discussion on the eventual interest rate easing. We end tonight with some good news. Egypt's Sovereign Wealth Fund is finalising a master plan to revamp Cairo's historic centre, now that government ministries have largely moved to a new capital to the east, and hopes to break ground on the project within months, its chief executive said. The area, modelled on Paris in the 1860s, is filled with elegant but crumbling buildings constructed over the subsequent 7 decades. Many were nationalised in the 1950s and 1960s and then left in disrepair. The Sovereign Fund has already taken control of 3 prime properties in central Cairo and received ownership of 11 former ministry buildings in a decree published in the official Gazette this week.
So we want to revitalise downtown Cairo to really live up to its true potential.
It is also overseeing the real estate portfolio of Nasir Insurance Holdings, which includes nearly 100 buildings, mostly built before the Second World War. The blueprint includes a government quarter on the southern edge of the city centre and involves traffic plans, area surveys and plans to repurpose various buildings, the fund's chief executive officer, Ayman Soliman, told Reuters. The fund will bring in private companies to own and finance much of the property. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and 2 international advisors are helping to draw the plan up. Much of the government has transferred in recent months to ministries and offices in a lavish new capital being built 45 kilometres east of Cairo. The fund expects to take over many former government buildings to either sell, manage on behalf of the government, or turn over to private developers in exchange for minority ownership stakes in the projects. The plan will discourage some activities such as warehousing and storage, while encouraging others such as tourism. It provides for preservation of architectural styles through a permitting system, weekend pedestrian zones, and the creation of parking garages in place of uglier buildings. The 3 vacated properties the fund has received are Tahrir Square's colossal Margama building, formerly a notoriously dysfunctional one-stop bureaucratic shop, the Interior Minister compound, and a now vacant Nileside plot once occupied by the headquarters of the former ruling National Democratic Party. The National Democratic Party building was burned during Egypt's 2011 uprising, then demolished. The sprawling former Interior Ministry compound, which has good power and digital wiring, is being turned into a business park, catering to startups and tourism. It would include a 3-star Moxie hotel by Marriott, the first in Egypt, Soliman said.